The book direct movement is hot right now. If you're a vacation rental owner or property manager, should you care about this? Should you care about getting bookings away from OTAs and focusing on getting bookings direct? We're discussing this right now with Damian Sheridan, the founder of the Book Direct Show and the Book Direct Network. See you there. Hey, Rental Skill Up members. Thanks for joining us today. I'm with Damian Sheridan. Damian is the founder of the Book Direct Show and the Book Direct Network. We'll be talking today, obviously, all things Book Direct, especially because in September, there's a hybrid event coming up, which is the Book Direct Show, and it's taking place in London in person, but also online in early September. So Damian will be telling all about this great event. And now of course, we be teasing him because, as you may know, I used to work at an OTA, and I have a different approach maybe to a few things. So I think it's super interesting. And as we always say, the world is not like there's not only one way to do things, there are different ways. It's all about learning what to do and picking the right strategy for yourself. So without further ado, Damian, hello, welcome, and how are you?
Good morning, Thibault. I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me. Real pleasure again.
That's great. So where do we find you this morning? Where are you?
I'm in the south of Spain. I have been here pretty much since March 2020. Like I guess many of us, travel's been restricted. So, but yeah, it's a glorious day here, mid-20s or so in Spain. So life is okay, Thibault. Thank you.
So how's it like when you you have this Book Direct Show event coming up in September, and maybe you can share with us a bit like the dates and what it's about, and how it's like to organize an event taking place in London when you are stuck in Spain. That could be interesting to hear about.
It's very interesting, Thibault. Yeah. Well, thank you for giving the opportunity just to talk very briefly about it. Without doing a major sales push, it's a hybrid event rather this year. So we're really excited to get back to some level of in-person. It's the Book Direct Show. It's all about direct booking strategies for property managers, be they short-term rentals, B&Bs, guest houses, hotels even. So we have an event which is going to be in two formats. One online, which is over 10 days at the start of September. So people can watch this anywhere they are in the world. And we've got in person, exactly, in London conference on Monday the 13th, where we're going to have about 9 or 10 speakers plus panelists. Arranging this, yeah, absolutely. It is tricky because I've still not been able to get to our venue. I hope to next month. I've got a vaccination registration appointment today, so fingers crossed. We'll see how things go. But it's different for sure, but I'm hugely excited about the prospect of us getting back in person again, alongside some other great events that are happening over the course of a couple of weeks in September, the Short Stay Summit, VRWS, Festival. So really excited about all of those coming together over a couple of weeks and meeting everyone again. I think we've been waiting a long time, and I think we're deserving of not only the educational aspect, but some meeting friendly faces again, and maybe a beer or two as well.
And what I like here as well is that obviously it's still a hybrid event, and if you can't travel, I think it's good in a way, because if you can't travel for some reason to the UK, or you don't have time to, or there's like things, you can still benefit from some learnings, right? Which networking harder to do, but at least whether you have a solution, so you can still do that. I think it's pretty interesting because maybe it's opening more opportunities for people to benefit from the teachings and the things. Can you just also touch quickly upon the Book Direct Network? What's it about?
Thibault, yeah, let me just to follow up on that point that you were just saying. Yeah, it is very important for us to be able to reach property managers wherever they are in the world, and that's why we've got the online format too, because I think as well there's a lot of people who don't want to travel. They're nervous about traveling still, and we've got to respect that. I think not only people throughout the UK, but throughout Europe and beyond. So we want as many people to join us in that online capacity, and for free even as well. The Book Direct Network, Thibault, yeah, that's an interesting one. That is essentially a community that we've created and developed online, specifically again for direct booking strategies. whereby we've got a number of contributors from around the world who are experts in their field, contributing amazing information and suggestions and tactics all about direct bookings, how we can employ them into our own business. And yeah, it really all started from last year, whereby we had our online event, as you know, last September, but our thinking was at that point it was going to be very difficult to do another in-person event. It was going to take a long time. So really the idea and the premise of the network started. So we've got several hundred people on there now as members. We've got a lot of contributors, and we'll be picking your brains for that too. And yeah, it's coming together nicely. And again, just all about those ways that we can help each other. Really, it's a community.
Community with diverse opinions. So let's dive in right now. So obviously, some people are like, see things like 0 or 100%, right? Some people, you hear first book direct, you're like, yeah, I want to go completely direct. Or people say, why bother? And of course, life is not 0 or 100% something, right? It's always in between. And I'm starting with my own case, right? Obviously, as people may know, I worked for 5 years at Booking.com, which is a major OTAs that some people love, some people not so much. And also I got my own properties, right? And when it comes to my own properties, I am listed with Booking, Vrbo, and Airbnb, and I have my own website, for example. And we have properties in St. Bart's in the Caribbean and Bali, Indonesia. And I do not have the same strategy when it comes to direct bookings. For example, for most of them, I'm trying to, I'm agnostic in the sense that for both places, I'm like, given the same cost or the profits, let's say, I get in the end, whether so I'm an owner, right? So if it's a listing site where I list my own place, it's my own website, or a villa agency, a property manager, basically, I'm fine in the end of the day if my profits are sort of the same. But when it comes to direct bookings, I do. Let's say I have a much better strategy for St. Bart's. I'm way more active because in St. Bart's, in this market, a third of the people will come back the year after. So I know I can try to get these people and make it repeat business for me. And that's where capturing the guest data is important, because I will make something out of it. Well, for Bali, it's trickier because for a lot of people, it's like the place where you go, it's on your bucket list, once in a lifetime, don't come back. So I find it super, super hard to justify for me the need to do all this effort to attract people directly and book with me directly, because in the end, what I'm going to do with the data. So let's go there. So what do you think of that? Should people be agnostic when it comes to bookings, or be completely about direct bookings? What's your view on this?
I think times have changed, Thibault. I think we have to be much more focused on our efforts, for sure. But look, and I'm going to quote David Jacoby from Hostfully here, who I know you've been on several webinars with. And I think it may be one that you were on with him. He said, now I hope I get this right, if you've worked with one property manager, you've worked with one property manager. Or something along those lines anyway, and that we all work totally differently. Some of us have, we've got properties in different locations, different amounts of units that we operate. We all have to respect that, what works for one business is totally different to what works for another. So I firmly believe that the book direct movement, whatever you want to call it, it's not for everyone. We have to weigh up our cost of acquisition, because without a doubt, using the likes of Booking.com and Airbnb, they're very simple processes. They make life very easy for us. And despite what some people, myself included, would say that it's perhaps a little bit too easy to get entry into our industry, and that it might be slightly saturated in certain areas, I think it's important to respect what OTAs do. And, it's going to work for a lot of people just to rely on OTAs for the moment. And that works brilliantly. And that's going to bring in bookings. The amount of commission you pay, you can work that into your pricing as well. So I'm not one to say that that's not how you should do things. Perhaps, you could also say that during, the spring last year, when availability calendars were shut down and we were kind of left twiddling our thumbs for, 4 or 6 weeks, my goodness, what do we do now? And those who had some kind of strategy or proactivity were the ones who were going to be able to move forward quickly. Those who had their own websites, those who had the availability to target digital nomads or domestic travelers, for example. These are really important trends that we need to focus on. Whereas if you're just solely reliant on listing on platforms, then it's going to be a lot more tricky to do that and set yourself apart.
And to that point, Damien, as well, what's interesting, what you talk about, what happened last year is sort of happening this year again, in a sense that if you're lucky enough, right, not to have properties in big cities, let's say, Cotswold or coastal areas, rural areas in France, for example, or even the Alps, where I was reading data from Airbnb that said that the ADR in the Alps in Chamonix has jumped by 62% compared to 2019, right? So in a way, if you're lucky to have so much demand, why not just like put that on your own website? Why should you share that across OTAs, right? So it is interesting as well. So in these hard times last year, it makes sense. It's sort of in these great times right now, it kind of makes sense as well, because if you are really able to have your own demand, to capture that demand and to make those to booking, it's a great time, because supply is short in some areas. Don't you think?
Supply is short, I think, in most areas, from what I'm gathering. I think, I know one example of a company here in Marbella, down the south of Spain, who have almost pivoted their whole business towards digital nomads over the last year. And they've been incredibly successful for doing that, because they have a block of apartments on the seafront with incredible views. What better place to work? So I think those who had that level of proactivity and who could change their business, I think we're in a better position, so to speak. Yeah.
Touching upon a point you had as well, Book Direct is not for everyone, or let's say there are some degrees to it, right? As we just said, you can between ignoring completely listing sites if you can, again depending on supply and demand, where you are, your strength, or from completely depending on just Airbnb, for example, because just too complicated for you. You have one property, it doesn't make sense, just complicated. There's a whole degrees of that. So let's say I go to the Book Direct show or the Book Direct network. So how can the content you have there, can help me unpick this and try to think, okay, this is how much I should go, and understand which how much effort I should have into building this strategy for my own business. So how can you really help with this?
I think the important thing is that anyone who considers either coming to our show in London or attending online has an open mind for a start. I think all of the education that we're providing in our various sessions, they're not for everyone. There are certain things that everyone can take from this. I'll give you one example. SEO, I work in search engine optimization. That is not at all for everyone. That is really if you're further down the line, because it's technical. It's a lot more complicated. It involves a huge time resources, and you will generally not benefit from even a successful SEO strategy or campaign for probably 6 to 9 months minimum. So, but these are things that might appeal more to people who are, a couple of years into their journey, whereas someone who is very early in their journey, in their first year, email marketing might be a lot easier way to focus your efforts and to build upon your database of your previous clients, and how to even build up your database. Because I know a lot of us out there, we may not have even thought about, trying to strategize about our previous guests, but that is a gold mine in itself, as we know. So it's really, it's a bit of a pick and mix of education. But also, Thibault, I would say that I think it's important to recognize that people have different ideas of what Book Direct is, because for a lot of people, it's an anti-OTA thing. It's just any booking that doesn't come from Airbnb or Booking.com, or Expedia. These are names they're almost like the devil for a lot of people, which I think is personally very unfair. But there are other listing sites out there that do provide booking details, pass them straight on to an owner, and you get all of the benefits of the guest email address, phone number. You have that free interaction. So for a lot of people, that is a direct booking. You may pay a subscription to be on there, an annual subscription. But why isn't that a direct booking? Other people might say that a Google ad campaign, for example, is not a direct booking because you're using a third-party platform. Again, I don't necessarily think that, but we all have different interpretations. Not necessarily that one is right or one is wrong, but for me, it's just about the level of independence and control, and whether you can interact with that client in the way you want to interact with. I think that's important. But we all have different interpretations.
Yes. And you cover all these topics, right? From as you say, like collecting emails, going out, going back, after your past bookers, or advanced SEO strategies. So I think that's both. It's both in a show and a network. Can I find this? I can find this kind of information. Can I?
Absolutely, Thibault. Yeah. So in our network, which is free to join, we have videos and articles on there, all about these things that we're touching on now. And with our Book Direct show, we'll try to cover as many of them as possible. Obviously, having worked on this for the last couple of years, I know that there are scores of hundreds even of different strategies that any company or owner can employ for Book Direct strategies.
And last question here is that obviously we're filming this is June 2021. What do you think is the number one, let's say, Book Direct strategy or channel that people are excited about these days?
Excited about or have to do? I think maybe that's a little bit different. I think working alongside guest trends for me is an exciting and an important thing that we should all be looking at. We've touched on already things like domestic travelers, things like digital nomads, or workationers. For me, that's an exciting prospect of knowing that this is probably going to be the case for certainly in Europe. I think for probably the best part of another year, where we're going to be looking at these kind of demographics. So for me, working towards that with my clients, my SEO clients, and kind of thinking who is our guest profile and working towards that can really reap a lot of rewards. So that is one of many ways, though. So what's exciting for one person can be very, not very exciting for another, Thibault. So that's, I guess it's a bit ambiguous, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just very rich. And again, so to know more, I guess the best way for people is to go to the bookdirect.show website. Thanks again so much for your time today, Damian.
Thank you so much, Thibault. It's always a pleasure to chat to you.
Yeah, and I guess see you soon. Take care.